Hi, Michelle, this is Kim, and I'm setting up to paint the Mourning Dove. I have a photo of it right here that I found online. I think I showed it to you, and not online, it was in my photos that I took of the Mourning Doves that were sitting outside of our patio last year during a snowstorm. So anyway, I've got that. Since you said that you wanted to do a dove and you're having trouble with the color scheme and that sort of thing. So I hope this is kind of in keeping with what you were hoping for. But what I'm doing here is the main color of the Mourning Dove is sort of a soft brown. It's like it's not a warm brown necessarily. It's more like a soft with brown with sort of a bluish tinge, a little bit of a gray. And that's why they say dove gray, because doves are sort of like I would say sort of a brownish tint to gray. So maybe you can see that in the wings right down here. There's a little bit of that hint of gray going on. But I always think that the brown kind of leans more towards the bluer tones, the cooler tones. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting down the groundwork for the painting with a wash of a very faint brown. And the brown that I'm using is called Van Dyke brown, and it's one that doesn't have a lot of red in it. You'll see, I'll show you this one. This is what I mean by a lot of red. You'll see a lot of red in this brown right here. Let's see, there's a lot of red in this brown. You don't want that. That's too red. That's like a brick red or brown that has brick red tendencies. The one that I'm using is called Van Dyke, and it has more of the gray tones in it that I'm looking for. So what I'm going to do is just put in a wash of the brown. And it's going to be very light. You don't want to have anything dark because you're going to want to go into do more detail work. And since the color palette isn't a real dark brown, you want to keep it nice and light, but just as a base. Okay, so I'm going to fill in all of this here. And I realize that you may not, and see there's even a little white in the bird's feather points right in through here. You see the white edges. I'm still going to do that with a really light brown because it's just easier that way. And plus when I go back into deepen these colors, it's going to look pretty much white anyway. So this gives it a little bit of a tint. You could leave it white if you wanted to, but it's just a little more time consuming to do that. All right, so I realize, the other thing too is I realize that you may not have a brown that's Van Dyke brown. So I'm going to show you a way to make your brown seem a little less reddish if you have one that's kind of a reddish tint. So I'm going to turn this off for just a second and get the palette ready. All right, so what I'm going to do is if you have a brown that's more like this brown right here, this one right here that has sort of a reddish tint to it right here. You can see how it's kind of reddish. Here we go, that way. And this is the Van Dyke. This one has more of a little bit of it has more of a blue tone, not a blue tone, but a little bit more neutral, not red than this. So if you have one that's kind of a red tint, and that one's called, that's usually like I can't think of the name right now, like sepia or burnt umber, that kind of thing, it has a red tint. What you can do is take that reddish tint brown and put it into either like a clean dish or something that won't interfere with the other palette, and just make a little puddle of it right here. So you can see it kind of has a red tint. And then what you can do is bring in some of the the Payne's Gray and mix that right in there. And what that does is it takes the red right out and makes it more of a dove gray, makes it more like the Van Dyke gray. Never mind the purples that I have in here, but you can kind of see where I'm getting more of the gray tint to the brown instead of the yellowy one. And that's if you want to be like really accurate. So see, you can see the color is a lot more similar to what I have in here. Okay, so it's a real easy mixture of the two, like just your regular brown and the Payne's Gray, or something that has a little blue but no nothing with purple, like a purple tint to it. Like some blues kind of lean more towards a red tint, like towards purple. You want it to be more like the Payne's Gray, more towards a gray. Okay, so this is drying, but what I notice is the head and the front of his bib has a little bit of the kind of reddish tint in it. So what I might do is, because it's not real definite, but I'm going to give it a little bit of a reddish tint in there with the regular brown and do a wash with that. And then I think I went a little too dark with his bib there with my tint and the brown. So I'm just going to lighten it up a little if I can, like lift some of the paint off the page just by going in and scrubbing it with a brush that has just clear water on it, and see if I can lift a little bit of it out. But I think once it dries, it'll be okay. So you can see I make all these mistakes as I go, so it's just kind of like working around it. All right, so I'm using my Van Dyke Brown, or in your case, you know, if you don't have Van Dyke, if you have just the regular brown with the blue or Payne's Gray tint, and then I'm just going to start like making it a little darker. Not a lot. You don't want a lot of paint on your brush yet, because you're still just kind of doing the whole layering effect. So I'm starting to, and you want to be able to show some of the detail of the wings. So you just want to do a little bit deeper, because the wash isn't going to be deep enough. So you just add a little bit more, and you want to keep an eye on the fact that you want to have areas that show like a little bit different parts of the wing, you know, where you see it going a little darker here, and then there's the area that shows like the definition of the feather, that sort of thing. So I'm just going to do the straight color again, but as a second layer with a little bit more paint on it. And this will kind of make it pop away from his bib a little bit around his neck, so that you can see that there's two different colors, two different depths of color going on there. And what I'm doing here is there's an area where the darker brown kind of blends into the bib right here, right in here. So what I'm going to do is make this not a hard edge, but have a little water on it so that it kind of works down into the lighter thing. So it has a nice smooth transition from the little bit darker into the lighter part down there. And so I'm going to continue to do the rest of his feathers. And down towards the tips of the wings down here, and where there's like the definite wider areas on the tips, I'm going to be really careful around that, because I want that stuff to stand out. So I'm going to work around that with a darker brown. And then down in here towards the bottom, you really do see like more of a gray, or it goes into more of a gray down at the bottom of the bird's feathers here. So I'm going to start blending in a little bit of gray into that brown down here. And also doing that area, just kind of smoothing it out so it's more of a smooth transition instead of a really sharp one. What are you doing down there? Hazelnut is cleaning her paws. I keep hearing her lick, lick, lick. All right, so I'm going to turn the camera off for a second. Okay, I think it's dried sufficiently. What I'm going to do is, you don't want to get into all the little teeny tiny color changes here. I think it just gets too confusing and kind of tough for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the outlines here of the feathers, just to kind of give the hint of that, and then some of these little marks and stuff. And then I already painted the eye black, but you can go in and do that a little deeper, and then the beak. So I'm going to do those real quick now. So what I want to do is just probably do except for this part right here that really is dark, the rest of it's just a shade or two darker to show the areas of the feathers. See, there's this area is really dark. I'll do that with black maybe, or dark brown, but the rest of it is a little less dark. But now that it's all dry, what I'm going to do is go into here, and I just want to make sure I'm on the camera. Here we go. So I'm going to go in and with this little bit darker shade of brown, I'm going to go in and start marking out the areas where the feathers are. Right here. Now, instead of just having a straight dark line, you can go in and add a little water and just sort of pull it out a little bit, so it's not just this one like dark line, like you have a little bit of a shadow going on under there, and it sort of feathers out to the color beneath it. So you just kind of do a little smudging there. And then there's like a little line there. Then you go in with a little bit lighter color, and you can start just going in and coloring in those areas where the outlines of the feathers are. You don't have to be real exact. Some of it's a little lighter. I'm going to go in and make that a little lighter with some water. You can see how the feathers get a little smaller when they get up here, and you can do these little things up here. Make them a little lighter so it looks like the feathers are laying a little closer to the feathers below. They're not as marked as these were, lifting out. See, it kind of looks like they're lifting away from the bird a little bit. And then you go down in here and do a few more. You keep doing that. Just try to follow as much as you can, you know, the lines of the bird itself, its feathers. In some areas, you can see where the feathers look a little different. You can actually even do like a feather or two here and there that is actually a little darker. You know, just kind of, instead of the outlines, do like a feather that's darker here and there. You know, it gives it sort of that dimensional look instead of just a flat piece. So you can do that. And you can go even where you did put the outlines, you can go in and make it a little, you know, one of the feathers a little darker and then a little lighter to give it sort of a mottled look. I don't know if that looks good to you, but something kind of like that. And then once you get to this area up by his face, you can see where the feathers kind of stick out from his neck. So you can go in with a really dark, like brown or black and kind of do the lines under there. And then there are like these little lines here right by his mouth where the feathers sort of stick out. So you can do that. And he's got this little ridge of feathers here. I've got too much brown on that. And then there's a little bit of feather lifting here where you can see the feathers kind of lifting off of his chest. And then you can see where the feathers of his chest lift off away from the wing feathers, where he's kind of perched right in through here. And then he's got these little dots on his wings where you can kind of go in and do the little dots. Do them right on part of the wing there. There's one that's kind of sticking under there. And they're like under here. And then over here, you have like these wing feathers that are gray that just kind of go along like this, like little knife blades almost. They swoop. You can see that a little bit, how they swoop over. So you can paint those in. And then do a little bit of the black below that. There. See how it looks like it's swooping down like that? I don't know if that's, it's not perfect, but it kind of gives you the idea of how you can kind of set it up. You don't have to go into much more detail than that. I think that kind of gives the idea of, you know, those wing feathers, and he's perching. And then you can, he's sitting on snow. His tail comes down this way a little bit. We want to do, his back goes down beneath the wings, and then the wings on the other side are kind of sticking out, the underside of the wings on this side. My photograph doesn't really show that very well, so I'm just guessing. And also you have to show where the wing is kind of coming down over his back or her back. And you can kind of make that area of the wings on his back or her back a little darker to show a little depth there. It doesn't really show it that much on the photo, but I'm just kind of trying to make sure that it looks a little different than what it would look like if you didn't do that. Okay, it kind of gives a little depth to the bird's wings. And then you can go back in and do a little bit more detail to emphasize where that wing is and where the back feathers are. Go in and do a little bit more detail on his eye. You can see a little light reflecting in his eye, but not much. And then his beak is sort of a blackish gray with a little white on it. So I'm just going to do his little beak like this. It's kind of hidden a little bit into the feathers. You don't have to do too much. And then there's parts of it that's a little darker right towards the point. And then he's got this like little nose hole there. And then he's sitting on a mound of snow, so you can either do like a background that kind of goes around the snow. Because the snow is white, it's hard to kind of show where it is and where it isn't. So you can do like a background around him that fades off into white, that sort of gives you the impression that he's sitting on a mound of snow. You can probably do a little bit of like the blue shading from the Payne's Gray, kind of helps you get that sort of snowy feel, you know, because the shadows of snow is sort of that gray blue. And then if you want, you can go in and do a little bit of an outline, you know, to kind of make them stand out a little more from the background. And something that's a little darker than the color that you're using. Maybe not black, but sort of like a dark brown. Yeah, kind of an idea. I mean, it's not, you know, it's not necessarily finished, but I mean, it kind of gives you a start. And it's not too dark so that you can't go in and add things as you go. Like if you want to add more, you can. You can keep going as long as you want, but you're not like, you haven't put down one wash and now you're having a hard time getting details in. It's really important just to start with a light wash and then start adding layers as you go and detail as you go, so that, you know, you still have options as you go along. You can go even further than this, get more detailed if you want, although there's not, I mean, there's certainly things you can do. You can, you know, add more of the color to intensify it, make it seem deeper or more textured or something. But, you know, sometimes just a nice painting sketch like this is really nice too. So anyway, that's that. I'm going to turn you off for a second. I have your horse kind of sketched out, so I'm going to bring that over in a second. Hold on. All right, so what I did is I took your photo of your horse right here, and it shows, and it's perfect because what you did is what I just talked about with the dove, where you have it really lightly sketched out with your watercolor. You know, all the important details are in there that you want to work from. And if you want to go a little deeper with a little more color and depth and shadowing, I can show you how to do that. I don't have the photo of the horse with me, just this one, so I'm going to kind of wing it here, but I'll show you what I'm doing and how I get maybe a little bit more detail going on here and see if that's of use for you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've already got it basically the basic wash put on here, just the fine wash and some of the outline that you put in. I didn't do the color in the eye or the bridles, but I'm just going to show you how, given what you have already done, and the mane looks great. It looks like you have a lot of different colors in the mane, which gives it more depth. It gives it more of a dimension. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shade in a little bit, kind of from memory, of what, you know, the horse's face would look like. So you have, this is where the cheek, I don't know what the technical word for it is, but the cheek of the horse would be like right around here probably. So what I'm going to do is just start to darken that a little bit, not much, and sort of blend it in so that you can see that change from the horse's cheek towards his eye. And then he has this area like from the eye, I think, that goes down to his nose. Now I don't want to do that because that's white, but like in the area where he's got fur, there's a bridge of bone that goes in there from his eye socket down and kind of goes around his eye socket, I think. So I'm going to do a little bit more detail in there. we get his cheek. I'm going to get his little bit of his mouth, so we're going to do like that. I'm going to do like an eyelid around his eye. A little depth there. And then he has, well, he's used to, I think they have brown eyes. So I'm going to do like a really dark brown. And leave some white on either side. So not up above and below, but on either side of his iris, like the side that goes into the nose and the side that goes away from the nose. So you can kind of see what I'm talking about there. So there's white here and white there. Usually there's not white above or below unless they're scared or they do the whale eye thing. So we get that. And I'd probably put a little depth to his eyelid down below. Okay. I'm going to have to keep, now this part, you can see it's drying kind of light. So what I'm going to do is let it dry and then build it up a little more. But I'm just going to leave it like that for now because it's still drying. I know it's too light, but I just want to leave it. But what it does is it starts to mold the face so you can see a little bit more of the 3D effect going on. Okay. And now with the nose in white, what I'm going to do is use a little hint of my Payne's Gray to start to mold the nose a little bit more in shadow. Okay, so there's, see his nose start to take shape. And I know that they have these little flares for their nostrils, like this kind of thing, I think. So I'm going to do a little flare there. It's probably too dark, but it'll dry a little lighter, I think. And then just like a little bit of a, not a strong line, but just something that kind of gives it a little dimension there. And then also down below where his mouth is. Now I know that you have your bridle on there, but it looks like you're starting to do the cheek definition here, but it's just a harsh line, so it looks more like a part of the bridle. So what you can do is go back in there and lift a little of that dark line out, and then start to spread it a little more like this in here over towards the bridle line, or yeah, towards the bridle line. So you want to lift that really dark, heavy line away and make it more of a nice, well, I don't mean nice, but more of a subtle definition that kind of shows you where the cheek is starting to swell into the nose area and by the eyes. So here we go. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit more definition by the eye with that nose, that ridge line that comes down from the eye to the nose, but only as far as the brown goes on his fur. So I'm going to smear that in a little bit. And then I'm going to pick that up again with the, down below that with the gray. Pick up that ridge line to his nostril. Okay. You don't even have to make it like really smooth. It has like a little kind of squiggle. Whoops. Gives it a little more definition. And then, let's see, I'm just gonna maybe darken his nostril a little bit, like in the inside part. Right here where his nose is sort of flared out. And then he has, this area is probably a little less dark as it goes over to the nose. So you can see that. And then let's see his ears. Okay. His ears, your ears are great. You have the nice outline on the ears up here. And you've got a little depth inside the ear, which is good. You could probably even go a little deeper because I think they have, you know, their ears, like the edge of the ear is out here, and then it goes out to sort of like a little furry area, but they have like this area that definitely goes down deeper. So you can kind of make that area along this side deeper. And then, like I said, your the mane is really nice. I think you've done really well with the mane too, so you probably don't need to do anything with that. So anyway, hopefully this, and you've got a little highlight in his eye on here, so that's great. So I'm just going to add a little darkness to the ear here, or not ear, the eye. Maybe try to get my own little highlight in there that I neglected to put in before there. So, and what you can do is maybe go back in and make more definition to the, I'm sure this marking is probably something that really sets this guy apart. This right here, this area of brown. On his face makes him him. Here. All right, so now I'm going to look at this, make sure it looks like it makes sense.